Welcome to Life Unrestricted.
This is your show if you're sick of living a life controlled by food and exercise rules, and if you're ready to learn how to accept yourself and enjoy the heck out of life. My gig is about body image, femininity, self-worth, and resilience. Come on, let's walk side by side as we slowly step out of restriction misery and unlock our true selves.
Your host, Merritt Boxler, is a former national radio DJ, freelance journalist, speaker, and writer with a passion to make women feel good in their bodies. This is a show brought to you live from Switzerland.
Hey, jump on board, lovely radical. It's time for a feel-good audio trip again. This week I will bring you my talk with Erica Leon, a woman with more experience in helping people recover from dieting and or disordered eating than we could wish for. I loved our conversation, and before we dive in, I need to lose some of my thoughts on the diet industry here. Because it's that season, right? People are going nuts with their Whole30s, crazy diet and workout challenges, and the general rhetoric about having to get that body beach ready. The reason why this pushes my buttons so hard, of course, is that I believed all that crap for about 20 years or more, and I did everything to conform, forgetting that I was basically sacrificing my life. My joy, my relationships, my libido, my fun, just to end up miserable, more confused, and wondering why I never got to that promised land of skinny happiness and skinny confidence and skinny peace that was promised. Lovely radical, wherever you are on your journey, let's get one thing straight. The only way to get a bikini body is the following. Have a body, put a bikini on it, end of story. Everything else plays into a well-designed, well-oiled industry. The diet industry isn't making insane amounts of money every year for nothing, and we're talking $60 billion in the US alone every year. Let that sink in. It is designed that way. Diet and the whole industrial weight loss complex, if you will, with all its programs and products and regimens, is cleverly designed to perpetuate itself. How profitable! No matter what they call their diets these days, the ridiculousness ranges from lifestyle change to a way of show body positivity to yourself. When it's based on restriction, you can expect the inevitable binge/falling off the wagon to happen sooner or later, after this honeymoon phase that we all know, where you might get intoxicating compliments on your weight loss, and you can expect the weight to come back, you can expect the feelings of shame and guilt, you can expect thinking it was you who failed the diet, you can expect thinking you should have had more willpower, and you can expect suddenly suspecting that probably you are a sugar addict after all. All that is very, very clever design, because it leaves you in a state that almost inevitably has you come back for more, right? While your self-esteem withers away, you get more and more susceptible to all sorts of messages and new elimination plans or detoxes or lifestyle change ideas. How could you not? If no one tells you how diets really work, then you're very prone to fall for all these crazy ideas out there. They certainly are packaged in a very, very tempting way. But your body is designed to keep you alive. It does everything to keep you alive. So if you start restricting, it will be alarmed, and it will cause urges in you that you feel powerless over, because your body wants you back in homeostasis. And the more we interfere with that, the more extremely the body will fight back. Hence the weight gain plus extra when the diet stops. So I truly think we are causing this so-called weight problem in the world by putting people on diets in the first place. If weight is a problem, then the diets are certainly exacerbating the problem. So instead of teaching people to first off stop restricting mentally and physically so that they can heal this restriction-induced obsession with food by actually allowing themselves to eat, their binge behaviors will subside as their body slowly learns to trust them not to starve it again any minute. And then the body will settle into its functioning best. And for most of us, it might be that it's not what our ego had in mind. It's probably not going to be the beauty magazine Photoshop bullshit portrayal of this unattainable ideal that we might have had in mind and that we might achieve with a lifetime of obsessed, disordered, antisocial eating, or potentially by developing an eating disorder. And that's a very dark place. We know that. What we get when our body trusts us, though, is our own body and our peace of mind back when we allow it. And trust me, I have my issues with that. I struggle a lot with allowing my body to go through that healing phase. All sorts of fears come up for me, all sorts of judgments about myself. It feels very body related usually, but upon closer inspection, it really isn't so much about the weight and my body. What I'm afraid of in this process is completely psychological. Because hell yes, I want my peace of mind back, but just as we all are, me and my own judgment is a product of my own upbringing. My environment, my experiences, my broken heart, my mental health issues with complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and a very high anxiety brain. Also, just as anyone else, I am a product of the beliefs that I was handed down. And let's pause for a second here. While we might think that what we believe is true, period, we can learn a lot about ourselves, other people, and the world when we start to recognize that what sometimes feels like rock-solid truth for us might feel like a complete falsehood to someone else. Think about religious beliefs, for example. Think about health beliefs. Think about racial beliefs, gender beliefs, etc., etc. Along these lines, what feels like a good thing to us might feel completely wrong to someone else. Think about something simple like, say, I prepare my favorite dish for someone I don't know well yet. Lasagna. To me, the best food in the world, almost. Even though I hardly ever eat meat myself, I don't have a problem with the occasional lasagna per se. But to a vegetarian, this would be an awful meal. Of course. And of course, this is an overly simple example, but go with the thought and you'll notice that it really holds true on almost every level. Depending on your situation, your beliefs, your culture, your upbringing, your health, you are likely to react completely different to a particular situation than someone else. To me, for example, the smell of smoke instantly creates a high state of fear and a fight or flight reaction in me because I was trapped in fires in my life, and I have lost people in fires. So this goes to show that our perception of things is A, different, and B, is shaped by, as I said, our own history, our trauma, and our assumptions, which again in turn are a product of our cultural and personal conditioning. So more often than not, any sort of judgment is produced by a need to feel on top of things, to not create cognitive dissonance in our mind, to maintain the order in our belief system and not topple anything. So you could say our judgment is often about the need to be in control, or even to feel superior sometimes, to feel like we have it all figured out. But really, if we put people and things into boxes that we create for them, we're not open for the diversity that creates all the colors and the wonderfulness in this world. So for our own sake and for everyone else's, it's always helpful to move away from black and white, self-righteous ways of thinking And for that, there needs to be more self-awareness. And I don't think I'm saying that for the first time. So what helps me here is to not judge myself, or not overly judge myself for judging, but rather just to notice and go, so my judgment here is this. And to me, that might feel very true and solid, but there could be another way to look at this. Yes. Could I maybe even find reasons to prove that the opposite of what I'm thinking could be possible as well? And interestingly, I mostly find that it is. And so to tie it back to our diet-obsessed world and all the narratives about having to get your body beach ready or some other crap, where I find myself judging left and right, judging the diet industry, because I get so fired up about the amount of body and food policing that is going on these days. Because I do see the risk of even more eating disorders developing, even more people being unhappy in their bodies, and all this increase of body negativity. But I can only use my judgment or my anger to produce something that helps us change it. For example, this podcast. Because the judgment alone doesn't get me very far. Because frankly, if I'm honest, I was there too. I recognized those thoughts. And I recognized that it was my own desire to lose weight that got me into the mess I'm now trying to get the world out of. So who am I to expect that other people see how dangerous dieting can be, seeing how dangerous food and weight obsession can become, seeing how life-restricting, how joyless and how futile it is to be on a diet or to go on a diet? I can't expect that. All I can do is to stay open and to keep producing this podcast. That's all I can do. And that's where you come in, lovely radical. I need your support to spread this message. This week, Mater got on board with my champs over at patreon.com. And I'm so happy about that. Thank you, Mater, for your contribution on my support page. With your monthly pledge, you are truly helping to change the paradigm. And I think a lot of people thank you for that. And for anyone who was yet on the fence, whether or not to support this show, please go check out my Patreon page and consider becoming a Life Unrestricted champ too. I'd love it. You can find all the details at patreon.com/lifeunrestricted. And just know, dear one, your support means the world to me. There are no strings attached, of course. If you support me on this mission, you can cancel anytime, which of course I hope you want to, but you can. And anyway, if you want to go check it out, it's patreon.com/lifeunrestricted. Check it out, please, will you? This week on the Life Unrestricted podcast, we are going to hear Erica Leon from Westchester County, New York. Erica holds a bachelor's degree in nutrition from Cornell University and a master's degree in clinical nutrition from New York University. Erica works with clients all over the globe by all technical means necessary, with people who struggle with food, their body, and people who want to overcome years of dieting or being stuck in disordered eating. She meets people where they're at, and she guides them to a better relationship with food and their body with a non-diet approach. On top of that, she also provides medical nutrition therapy for all sorts of issues like irritable bowel syndrome, IBS, or PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, etc., etc. She has 25 years of experience under her belt, and her career has included working in hospital, corporations, and colleges. Ultimately, combining all her skills and interests, she established a private nutrition practice over 15 years ago. As a certified eating disorders registered dietitian, she also volunteers on the board of the International Association of Eating Disorders Professionals, and she has written professional articles on nutrition. She frequently speaks, and she is quoted in the media on topics such as eating disorder prevention or childhood weight issues. I asked Erica if she was willing to share her memories of being in a body as a young girl.
Yes, I'm happy to. It's interesting. I have very few memories of my early years. I think probably the first time I really can think about my body was when I was 10. I was in ballet class and I loved dancing. And this could have been yesterday. It was many years ago. The ballet teacher mentioned that I should stop eating so many cookies and cakes because ballet dancers, are generally really thin. And it was in front of all the other kids. Just one of those moments that you'll never forget. Mm-hmm. And it really affected me. I mean, I left and I came home crying and I said to my mother, I'm never going back. And I was 10 and when I think back, I was not fat. I was not eating too many cakes and cookies. I was a normal kid, but I happened to have an early puberty. And we know that kids generally prior to puberty put on a little extra weight in preparation for growth. And so she just got it all wrong. And she really led me down a path of body shame that lasted quite a long time. Mm. So sad. Yeah.
What happened?
I can remember being just steeped in diet culture. My mom was always on a diet. There was always talk of dieting in my house. I mean, I know that comment really did have a negative impact. I mean, I was fortunate that I never developed a full-blown eating disorder. And I just say fortunate. For some reason, there were circumstances that prevented that from happening. But tremendous body shame.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, I can just remember always being on a diet, like going with my mother to Weight Watchers when I was 14.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, 14. Being there with all the other old ladies. And I can even remember getting so excited. That was around the time that they had Weight Watchers ice cream.
Yeah, we had that. We still have that.
Well, it was before the time that all these products came about, like Skinny Cow and all these other diet things. And it was like a novelty back then. I mean, I'm talking about many years ago. And I just remember it was such a treat going to this place in the Bronx. I'm from New York, where they had frozen Weight Watchers ice cream. It was like manna from heaven. And so just remembering being in this whole diet world, really all through adolescence and into being a teenager.
Did that make you feel good? Because some people say, in the beginning at least, maybe in the first year or so, they kind of say, yeah, Weight Watchers is great.
I don't even know if it made me feel good. I think it was just so what was expected, sort of what was normal. I know that as I was in high school and sort of on my way off to college, I had some trauma in my family. My father died, and there were quite a few other illnesses and deaths. And I do remember I stopped eating. I don't remember too much about that time. It was really a sort of a reaction to being very depressed and just having this extreme situation in my family. So I wouldn't say that I was quote unquote anorexic, but I remember not eating, and actually I remember losing my period, and I was so grateful. I went off to college and sort of escaped. I think that was very helpful in my preventing myself from developing a full-blown eating disorder, going away and being with friends and sort of getting back into a social environment and leaving the sadness behind. But even in college, I can remember everyone being on a diet, everyone exercising, burning off calories. That was just expected. That was the diet culture, and that I was in. And
because what I don't understand is that so many people say, yeah, Weight Watchers. I mean, I'm referring to Oprah, of course, also, but people say, yeah, it works for them to count points. And I understand, if I reflect back of how I was when I was 21 or something, then all of the plans and rules and stuff that I followed kind of felt good because I thought I had found the solution. But I had no idea what I was in for at a later stage, and what the cost of all of that would be, and how much worse I would feel because I would feel dependent on those rules. And what that implied was I cannot trust my body, which means I cannot trust myself and my signals, my body's signals, which is completely disempowering on every level.
Absolutely. I can remember that. I mean, being 14 and Weight Watchers I was just going to say it was a different experience than my going on Weight Watchers when I was older because, after college, as a young adult, I was always watching my weight. And I think sort of thinking back in my 20s, I always thought I was heavy. It's so interesting when you look back at pictures and you kind of see what your body really is like. I think even that ballet teacher telling me at 10 that I was quote overweight, whatever that means, that was always my identity. I really did feel that way. But the fact is that I was really normal. Interestingly, my younger sister, was sort of the heavy one growing up. And I used to be very upset with my parents just in terms of how the food was in my house, that they would sort of cater to her whatever she wanted. If she didn't like the food that was being served, they would prepare a different dinner, or would give her money to go out for dinner. I always felt like they really weren't good at setting limits around much, but also around food. And I wonder if part of my attitude was also in relation to that. Sort of I was always the thin one watching my weight. She was the heavy one, the younger sort of chubby kid. And then thinking back to after college, I still thought of myself as heavy. And I think that just genetically, my body was a little on the round side, which is genetics play such an important role in the way that our bodies turn out. And I think it's so important to recognize that also, that we come really in all shapes and sizes. And I think I totally lost track of the question you asked me. I'm sorry.
I was talking about the disempowering feeling you get when you are totally in diet culture, because the subconscious belief is, I cannot trust my body. And then how are we able to say this is making me feel good? This is based on so many false beliefs, like I'm not good enough if I don't look like this. I have to keep this up because I cannot trust myself. I'm only worthy when I'm skinny. Healthy equals skinny. All of those beliefs are the soil on which this whole thing can flourish. And none of that is true.
Yes, it's so unfortunate. I don't think I ever thought about hunger and fullness. It was never anything that I considered. Even, I'm going to say this, even having been a nutrition major in college, that was a long time ago, and we learned sort of the very general calories in, calories out, but I didn't question it. I mean, I didn't really question it in terms of my clinical practice, but I continued on diets. I continued doing exactly what you're saying, being steeped in diet culture, thinking that this was the thing to do. There was really no other way. All my friends were talking about being on diets. Like I said, it was part of the normal routine of being a young person in my environment.
Completely normal, like everyone else. It didn't even occur to me not to do that. It was absurd. And especially, with my mom having told me all that horrible stuff as well. And then seeing everybody on diets, I was like, I'm going to prove everyone that I'm going to be the ugly duckling who develops into a white swan sort of narrative. And I didn't really realize that I sacrificed my life for that to no avail. And I never got rid of the inner fat girl. You know what I mean? The one that so many people told me that, and I got shamed and bullied at school, and I never got rid of that looming shame that was there. And even at my skinniest, I was so afraid. I still had that image of myself, like as if it were right on the corner. One day of not following the rules and you're back on the schoolyard. That girl.
Yeah, no,
so it was, I never really felt the freedom of being thin and, now I can take it a little easy and stuff. Sure, I felt better as in, I can fly under the radar and I don't get openly attacked, for sure. But on the inside, it was just like the other shoe's gonna drop every second. You better be careful. And I never got rid of that. So how can you really enjoy the new body when it comes with a million rules and you still are afraid of the old image happening in a second again?
Yeah, no, it's like looking in the mirror, and no matter whatever it is that's the reflection is, it's how you see yourself. That's not fine. You don't see yourself in an accurate way. You're sort of looking through almost like a funny mirror when you look. Yeah.
That's the conclusion I come to when I talk to people who are at all sorts of different sizes and shapes and colors and whatever, gender. And it is only those people who are comfortable with themselves and their self-image is stable as I'm a worthy person. I bring whatever intelligence, humor, compassion to the table, whatever it is, that they have a better self-image. It doesn't matter what they weigh. They might be on the heavy end, on the thinner end, and it doesn't matter. It is all about that self-image. Because however I try to mold my body, as long as I didn't work on my self-image and developing some self-love or self-respect, the weight didn't change anything.
Yes, you know what? I'm always amazed when I see people who are totally in whatever body they've been given and just celebrating it out there. They're my heroes, and frankly, we need to surround ourselves with women like this, and not just women, excuse me, but men and all types of gender, whatever. People who are really comfortable in their bodies. It's something that I actually tell all my clients who are really struggling with letting go of dieting and recovering from eating disorders to really work on body acceptance, to fill their media feeds with body positive images and images of people who are clearly comfortable in their own skin, every size, shape, color, you name it. I think it's so important to recognize that we are living in a diverse world.
Yeah. And that's what social media is good for. One of the things that people can really curate is their feed, because it's a rare occurrence to really meet a person in real life that is comfortable in their skin.
Totally with you. Yep. I'll say that even in the eating disorder world, which is where I've been working for quite a long time, I can't say that every practitioner really embraces the notion of health at every size. I think it's a concept that I'm constantly explaining to colleagues, constantly trying to explain to physicians that I work with and that refer patients to me. I guess the people that are you, people like me, whoever else you have on your podcast, it's our responsibility to really show people that health can be in many different forms. I'm totally with you.
Yeah. And if there are weight goals in an eating disorder treatment, I mean, that's absurd for anyone who has a straight thinking mind, because that's the whole thing that got the person into this whole mess.
Absolutely. It's, I'm just going to say that with eating disorder recovery, it's very nuanced in terms of sometimes a person does need to have a specific, I don't want to say a goal, but a range just to sort of find general health when someone is really sick, undernourished. Maybe they've had some problems with their organs. So I think that that's a kind of a different place than eventually when someone is re-nourished, nutritionally rehabilitated, is coming to a place of recognizing that wherever your body lands, that's really okay. And I think that's a hard thing to accept for a lot of people, to recognize that our bodies have natural set points and that, restriction, unfortunately, affects metabolism and can change your genetic set point. I think that really learning to be comfortable in your body is a very challenging process, but very rewarding when it's freeing, when you can just be and not thinking about counting points or calories or whatever exchanges, just to eat foods that feel satisfying and delicious and all the above.
Yeah, I know. Just you saying that makes my heart sigh. Like, oh, I'm not fully there yet, but I know, like, sometimes I think, why am I so silly? I could die tomorrow. Then what? Like, yeah, you were really strict. Your discipline is amazing. What? You know what I mean? Sometimes it's so hard because you've heard my podcast, and it's about a lot of trauma that I'm working on with a therapist. So I see the role that food has, my binging stuff. It's really about protection. It's about feeling safe. It's about isolating. It's about, the lack of trust and stuff. So I'm working on that because were it just me having too much pride to kind of let go of my old identity as, for the past 25 years, I've been the fit and skinny one. You know what I mean? Like,
oh my goodness, absolutely.
I know that on a rational level, were I to be the weight that I was like when I was 18 or so, there would be no problem. And by the way, I think we all make up stories about reality that are so much worse because our memories are based on how that felt when we were powerless, maybe as children, when we were shamed, when we were abandoned, when we were neglected. And we have this terrible story, and we're running from that scenario at all costs.
No,
But
absolutely.
now we are adults. We can deal with that stuff better, and we know that love is not about that, but it's the deep programming that kind of,
That's correct. It's the deprogramming, and I'll just say that there's a reason that people develop disordered eating behaviors, whatever they be, whether they be restriction or binging or exercising, whatever they may be. And I think it's important to respect that those coping strategies came for a reason.
Exactly.
Becoming an intuitive eater is a process.
Yeah.
And, it takes some longer than others, but again, it's just chipping away, and just trying to find a new way of being in the world. And it is hard and it is scary because it's challenging our usual, challenging what we hear, what we see, what our culture is all about. But it really is so healing when you can slowly start to let go and recognize that food is just food. And I'll say that one of the ways that I work, it's a format of acceptance and commitment therapy where you really...
How does that work?
I'm just going to say that I'm not a therapist. I'm a nutrition therapist, but I work in the model of asking people to really recognize and think about what their true values are, what's really important to them, at a deep heart level. Often you may hear things like it could be my family or going to college, whatever it is to each person. And then, challenge a person to think about what actions they take that really support the values that they've identified. And so I use this a lot in eating disorder recovery when someone, for example, I had a client who really wanted to go to college, and that was such an important value to her education. And she was really able to, through a tremendous amount of hard work, let go of her eating disorder because it was really preventing her from moving forward towards going to college. And so she was able, again, with a tremendous amount of hard work, this doesn't happen overnight, clearly. Her identity had so much been her eating disorder, as it is for many people. And again, the eating disorder, whether it be restriction or whether it be a sort of even down the darker path of very disordered eating. But to diffuse from the eating disorder and recognize that it's still a part of you, but that you can use your, I guess I'm going to say your wise mind, the part of your brain that is a little bit more rational. But it takes time. You can be an adult, but it still takes time. And, I'm sorry, speaking of adults, I see a lot of adults with eating disorders in my practice. Middle age is quite a large percentage of people that are coming out of the woodwork for whatever reason. And I, as a middle-aged woman myself, I can see some of the triggers. I've noticed my body changing. And I think it can be triggering for someone who might have had either an eating disorder early on in their lives and it sort of resurfaces, or someone even developing a new eating disorder as a coping mechanism for changes in midlife. So, it happens at all ages, across all life stages. I think that's the point I'm making.
And before I forget it, I want to say two things. First of all, it's really hard for women if transitions happen, like they become moms and, whatever it is, menopause. There are those narratives out there that we're supposed to keep our teen body? Like, get your pre-baby body and your pre-menopausal body as if we were somehow not... How can I age gracefully and I am not the same person. I do not look like a baby either. So I was, though, at one stage in my life, a baby. No one talks to me about you should go back and look like a baby and be 10 pounds. You know what I mean? So
Yes,
what are we making up? Someone is becoming a mom and she's not supposed to look like a mom, but she is a mom. And that's one of the most respectful jobs in the world. How the hell? I mean, and people talk about menopause and stuff like you should stay skinny and your tummy is supposed to stay flat, which is...
Merit, I'm giggling. I'm giggling because
I get so enraged. Oh my God.
I know I have such a love. I was going to say love-hate, but it's really love at this point. I've learned to love my midsection. And Margot Main, who's a wonderful eating disorder practitioner and also researcher, talks a lot about as women get older, we do put extra weight around our middle, and it's really more, I consider it's like a life preserver. Estrogen, when you have extra fat, the estrogen is present there, and it helps to keep your blood level stable, because as we age, naturally our estrogen levels drop.
It's for bone health, it's for the internal organs, it's for our sex drive, everything.
For mental health. I'll put mental health up there. Big one.
Yeah, I was amazed because no one ever told me that. And I'm like, oh, what? This is supposed to be healthy around my midsection? Why? Everybody talks about flat tummies everywhere. And I saw so many studies about that, and it completely made sense.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. I'm laughing again because I've never had a flat stomach. I mean, just to me, who has a flat stomach? I mean, women are designed to be curvy. That's what helps us make babies. That's what differentiates from males. We're supposed to have curves. So I'm not.
They love it. They love curves because it signals fertility and, femininity, but it has been beaten out of them as well. I know many men who only after 40 or so, they said, I always kind of liked rounder girls, but it wasn't cool with my bodies. So we kind of only went for the skinny ones because you were supposed to be a stud, and if you were with someone who's rounder, then your bodies would make fun of you and say, why didn't you get the hot chick and stuff like that? So it was beaten out of them as well.
I'll just say that I was single for a very long time. And one of the most important things was that my partner would love me just the way I was, warts and all, no matter what my body, no matter what my shape, because frankly, we all get older. We all, we're not just a body. We're so much more. Both of me, my husband, we're getting older. Our bodies are changing. This is life, and I want to just go back to that acceptance and commitment therapy that I was talking about, because you said it. When you think about passing on, it's like, what do you want your legacy to be? Do you want your headstone to say, I was skinny, or, I leave behind, a wonderful world of accomplishments and children, whatever it may be. It's not just about your weight.
What about becoming a big scientist? And what about changing the world? And what about traveling? I mean,
all
there's
the above.
So much stuff,
Yeah, I'm right with you.
So talking about values, let me go back to your story. How did your values develop or not develop because you were stuck in your dieting?
My career choice was so interesting. I'll just say that I've always been a rebel. I always wanted to do things differently than other dietitians. I don't know why, but I graduated, and the first thing I did was I worked in a hospital for a little while, but I thought it was a little boring. I was working in a cancer hospital, and I just didn't quite see how that was. At that point, I guess I was wanting to be in a little more where the action was, and I ended up, I'm not really even sure, working in public relations. I was young and kind of wanted to do things a little more exciting. And I did work for a public relations firm, and some of the products that I represented were quite interesting. Again, back then, I was still steeped in diet culture, and one of my first clients was actually the OptiFast program. So when I'm embarrassed to say it even now, but
number one weight loss program back then.
Well, I had to write press releases about Oprah carrying the crazy cart of fat across the stage. I mean, she lost all this weight on OptiFast. I mean, she was.
I remember that.
For one day, and she'll even say it now. I read interviews. Like she gained, like the next day. It's like the second she stopped this crazy liquid diet, she gained it all back.
She set up the stage for her own failure. Like she was carrying around her own, she was shaming her own fat.
And then fat from the very beginning.
She was trapped in that cycle from the start. Yeah. I'm so sorry for her.
Yeah, no, it was so sad. And I'll just say that I worked on that account. I worked on other diet products. Just, it was, I didn't
So what, you had to write press releases on her weight loss?
Press releases. I had to go. I was actually a media spokesperson. I'm embarrassed to say this too. An artificial sweetener. I went across the country talking about and really trying to make it sound newsworthy. This brand new artificial sweetener that was out.
Low fat.
Low fat cheeses. And this was exciting at the time. This was the diet culture, and I was getting paid a lot of money to do this. And I was a trailblazer because there weren't too many dietitians working in public relations. And I must say the PR firms, they kind of used my expertise as a dietitian to make their products sound good. So I know I realized it after a while that it just wasn't consistent with my values. I knew it just didn't feel right. I just
What
felt
were your values then?
my values really went back to caring about clients and patients and knowing that this just didn't feel right. And sort of at that same time, I remember I was getting married and I was thinking about, I had this opportunity to sort of rethink my life. What's important to me? I think family and mental health and caring about myself, self-care, those things were very important to me. And so I realized how much I missed working with patients. And at that time, I was very fortunate that I ended up starting a private practice. And I'm just going to say it. I don't know if that was what we did at the time. I did start giving people diets.
Most of the nutritionists or dietitians say they're helping people when they're selling them weight loss because it's so deep in our subconscious that like the first thing you have to do is lose weight. Whatever you have. If you have a cannonball wound, doesn't matter. Lose weight first. So people think that this is helping people. So I understand. And before you go on, I wanted to ask you about your education because every dietitian I talk to, they say that there's so many things wrong with nutrition schools and especially the people that are admitted there. Like if 75% of the general female population has disordered eating going on, I don't want to know how many of them are becoming dietitians or nutritionists or personal trainers to kind of solve their own problem. Like almost everyone I've talked to, there are so many that the number one motive was to kind of solve their own issues and they ended up going to nutrition school. I thought about it too when I was younger. Of course I did. And so many people I talk to, they say, I wanted to be a marine biologist or whatever, but I ended up becoming a dietitian because I was still kind of holding on to the idea that I might find a magic bullet. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's interesting. That wasn't actually what drove me to become a dietitian. It was really just circumstance. I started out as a psychology major, and I guess at that point didn't know what I wanted to do. I was floundering, and I took a nutrition class. And I'm going to say, I remember the first day, this wonderful professor, I remember her standing up at the podium and saying to everyone, my breakfast today was pizza. And I have to say it had all the food groups. It was very satisfying. She talked about the cheese, she talked about the dough, and that hooked me.
But you were steeped in diet culture, you said before, so you
Yes, I was. And I thought that was kind of cool. And I remember then taking nutrition classes, and at that time, I also had the idea possibly of going to medical school. So I just found that I really liked nutrition. I liked the sciences. I don't think I really, maybe even consciously, was aware that the nutrition was feeding into my diet culture, kind of where I was. But the training was definitely focused on calories in, calories out.
No eating disorders are mentioned.
Never, in my undergraduate degree, and then I went right on to get my master's degree. Never once was it mentioned. I don't think I ever heard anyone talk about eating disorders. And it was one of those things I just found out by accident as I was working with my own patients in my own practice that I had started, right when I got married. After a very short period of time that I noticed after I gave people diets, of course they didn't work. And so I was searching at that point, like 1998, a long time ago, just realizing that this is not right. And we didn't have the kind of education about, even now, health at every size and dietitians who work in this area. I really had to kind of find my way. And I remember finding books to read, Overcoming Overeating. And I remember seeking out therapists to really kind of help me understand how to help people better. Because even though I'd been giving out weight loss diets, and what happened is people started to bring their kids to me. Adults started to bring their kids to me, and I started to see all these food issues that I had never realized before. And so I was seeing all kinds of eating disorders and kids who were, I'm going to put this in quotations, overweight, the doctors were so worried about them.
And I still believed that as well back then?
I questioned it tremendously. I knew. Wow. I saw that there were family dynamics going on. And so I actually got certified in a method called Shape Down, which at that time was kind of revolutionary. It really looked at sort of family systems and looked at parents as their attitudes affecting how their kids are in response to food behaviors. And I got to work with a whole multidisciplinary team of therapists and family therapists, exercise physiologists. So I really have to say I learned a lot about not doing diets. And then there was actually, I had to sign a paper that said you will never give a kid a diet. From that point on, I knew that there was a different way. And then, I just kept working in this area. And then I started to see eating disorders, like a lot of eating disorders. And I guess maybe because I'd been so steeped in diet culture, it was like eye-opening. And it helped me, the more that I sat with my clients really struggling, I must say it just helped me recognize where I was stuck. I do a lot of meal support with my clients. I take them out for meal experiences, restaurants, and there's no way that as a dietitian I could be restricting my food or not having foods I enjoy when I'm modeling it for my clients. So it's been, I guess, a self-discovery during this whole journey of working with eating disordered clients and people struggling.
What would you tell your younger self then, now with the knowledge that you have?
Well, I wish I could go back and say to my younger self, you're beautiful just the way you are. Just the way you are. You don't need to be anything more than how you are right now. You don't need to be any special shape or size. I was thinking back, like I really did have a lot of the elements of the components of someone who might develop an eating disorder. I was really perfectionistic. I was recognized in my family for being kind of the smart one. I was always kind of, it was expected that I would do well. And
trauma, as you said.
Look how I've forgotten that.
That's a good sign.
Seriously, there's a lot of therapy involved. And I can actually tell you, I remember my first therapist. He really helped, I'm going to say, save my life. But he was really big. He was like in a larger body. And I remember thinking with my 20-year-old self, like, how could he be so comfortable in his body? It was such an interesting thought that I had back then. And it's because he owned himself. He was comfortable in himself. It wasn't just about his body. It was where his mind was. That's where I am now. And I'd say to my younger self, you're okay. You're okay just as you are. You don't need to be anything or just be yourself. That's what I would say. And that's really what I said to my kids. And I hope that they've heard that. I think so. My daughter is 22 and she's graduating college. And I think she has internalized a lot of the positive messages. She was a communications major and actually just told me she wrote a wonderful paper on media and the awful effects it has on body image and eating disorders. So I guess she's heard it.
Can you share some of those insights? Because I think people should know about that anyway.
It's shocking to see what our culture has, the ads that are in our news feeds, that are on television. You're constantly seeing skinny, really thin-looking models, seeing television actors, seeing red carpets. I mean, these kinds of things that not just young girls, but also young boys see on television, they really influence how a person observes themselves. And there's such a comparison. What's unfortunate, there's such lack of diversity also in terms of what you see out there as role models. I mean, that's another tremendous problem. But it does make somebody who might be in their own normal body, their own normal body shape, think I should be like that. And
my OBGYN said she was experiencing more and more young women coming to her with sexual problems, as in, they had internalized the advertisement objectification of women and the oversexualization, that they were not consciously thinking that they were being objectified themselves, but they did behave in a way also with boys that they thought they had to, do stuff they didn't really want to do and dress in ways that they might have said, yes, I want to dress like that. But it was all based on, I need to do this to be loved. I need to do this to belong. I need to do this not to be, an old spinster who is not open to experimenting. And that they were completely traumatizing themselves because they were trying to be like the ads, like the narratives we are being told in movies and everywhere. And
I just saw something in my newsfeed. I've tried to curate my newsfeed to be only body positive, health at every size, but sometimes something will creep in. And it was just yesterday, I saw how fitness models, pictures of fitness models, like if you'd want to use in writing a blog post, the stock images, they're all sexualized. You see all these women who are in exercise gear and they're all a certain size with their six pack and
Somehow
they're all dressed
seductively
so
portrayed, right?
seductively. Yes.
The
Not,
droplets of sweat and kind of,
yes.
I'm so breathless.
I'm
Yeah.
going to tell you something that I feel when I'm exercising. I feel like a champion. I honestly don't care what I'm wearing. I'm happy in old sweats.
Yeah.
It's just this whole, you're right, there's over hypersexualization in images in the media.
Yeah,
And
it doesn't help. And then that ties with the narrative that boys want that and that this is desirability, ergo, this is safety, this is love. So,
yes,
we combine all those different messages on a subconscious level and we live accordingly because we're all afraid to be, left behind and, not seen. But the whole thing is, it's all lies. It's feeding a capitalistic structure that is happily making money off of our insecurity.
off of our misery and insecurity.
Yes.
One of my favorite videos was put out by the Association for Size Diversity, and it's called Poodle Science.
Poodle Science.
Can I just say, I love talking about that with the kids I work with. Oh my goodness.
Tell everyone who doesn't know, please.
The notion is that our society, our culture really thinks that we're all poodles and that we should all look like poodles and our bodies should be like poodles. But the fact is that we come in so many sizes and shapes, just like dogs. There are bulldogs, there's mastiffs, there's St. Bernard terriers and greyhounds. I mean,
dachshunds.
Yes, dachshunds for sure. And
we're not supposed to all look like.
We're not supposed to be like a poodle. Not everyone, a starved mastiff will never have the same physiology as a poodle. And the way that our researchers are trying to compare health science really is looking at everyone as a poodle.
Right.
And the fact is that we're not. I remember saying to this little boy last week who came in, he was so cute. He was totally normal. He was doing really well with eating. His parents were doing a good job. But he was so worried. And I said to him, I asked him if he had a dog, and he was talking all about his dog. And I said, is your dog like a poodle? And he totally got it. And he said, oh, I'm a bulldog. I said, yes, you are. You're a bulldog. We're come in all shapes and sizes.
Yeah,
and
just like apple trees, like everything.
Yes, like everything.
But I did fall for that lie as well. And I was thinking that we're all the same breed of dogs, but it's not true. Obviously, some people are Asian, some people are European, some people are larger, some people are smaller, some people have bigger hands, smaller hands, bigger noses. Yes. But I was like the Rottweiler trying to be a greyhound. And then I was looking like a greyhound and I was sick.
Oh, you were
and
sick.
The world told me that if I look like a greyhound, I must be healthy because thin equals healthy.
That's correct.
Ha ha.
That's correct. Ha ha. Yeah. I have a picture of myself next to Emmy, who was this amazing supermodel. And it's such an interesting picture because I'm 5 feet and probably shrinking, just the way I am. And she's a supermodel. She's like 6'2". The comparison between the two of us, it's funny. It's like a dachshund standing next to a greyhound. I mean, that's just... there's nothing you can do about how your body is designed and made. Those are your genetics.
We have to work on the culture that tells us that one image is worth more than the other. When in fact, those are two human beings. One might be more humorous, one might be a little smarter, one might be a little more adventurous, one might be a little more perfectionistic, one might be a little shy, one might be outgoing, whatever, but those are human beings.
Absolutely.
And you define them by their qualities and not by how they look.
That's correct.
I know so many men who are very disordered with exercise as well. Mm-hmm. And I always said, when men told me like, oh, I don't have a six-pack, I'm like, I don't want a man with a six-pack. I don't want to wake up with a guy that says, yeah, we might go for brunch, but I have to run around the lake first and do my 7,000 crunches first. Really? That's not why I want to be with somebody. Absolutely. I don't want to be with somebody who is trying so hard to keep his outside physical appearance to the detriment of our actual quality time together.
Oh, absolutely.
And women are doing that just to present themselves perfectly, but then there's no time left for actually enjoying sensuality, quality time, laughter, because you're always busy trying to, when can I get the next workout in? How do I not eat too much there? How can I not tell his in-laws that I actually
Yes.
cannot have cake. It
You know what?
all becomes so complicated.
It's so sad because you're not living your true life. You're really just focused on counting,
Yeah.
counting,
Yeah.
counting moments of exercise and food.
That's what makes me angry about Oprah, because she has so much
Back,
influence.
back to Oprah. Oh,
Yeah, now she's like a virus, and she
I'm
doesn't
so
know
mad.
better, because I want to believe her heart is truly good
Yes.
and she has achieved such amazing things, and still she stumbles over
Yeah.
that. And
No,
now she's preaching that to the world.
I have to say it. Yeah, I saw her. Look, I saw her back in 19, whatever it was, 2000, and here it is. It's 2017.
The
She's
same
the
story.
same story,
And now
same
she
story.
cannot leave the counting because she doesn't want to fail again. She keeps herself prisoner.
She keeps herself prisoner, and then she, unfortunately, because she has such a wide influence, people believe her, and
Yeah.
they call it the Oprah effect. Anything that she touches turns to gold.
Yeah,
She
but
makes
that's
people.
it's an unforgivable mistake she made. Just,
I
to make a lot of money and to kind of try and find her own silver bullet and then market that to the world
I
just to keep her own shame in check. That's
it,
not
it,
okay. It's
it's
really not okay.
devastating. It's not okay. I could go on. There's many other celebrities.
Yeah.
Celebrities, are quite influential. I mean, our little kids are looking up to them. They're looking for role models. So better to have role models who are healthy at whatever size they may be. Much better to have those role models. Yeah, I agree. What Oprah has done is unforgivable.
Yeah, I'm really sad that, especially her, I would have loved for her to chime into a different narrative, because she has achieved so much and nobody expects her to be any weight, because she is great anyway.
She is great
So
just
she
the way she
undermines
is.
everything. Every girl goes, yeah, okay,
Yes.
I can be even more Oprah-like if I go with her on the weight thing. But
Yep.
no, that's not what made it possible for her to be Oprah. It's not weight.
I know it's not weight. And I think to myself, let a health at every size therapist and dietitian team come and help you. Come
Yeah.
and let an eating disorder dietitian and therapist work with you. We'll show you there's a better way to be in your body. We'll show you how you can free yourself. But now she owns the stock, so it won't be happening too fast.
No, probably
Just
not.
such a shame.
In your practice, what kind of eating disorders do you see that are not typically visible? And at what ages are your clients?
I would say that my practice has a variety, really, because eating disorders come in all shapes and sizes. I have males who have binge eating disorder. I'm actually working right now with a man who himself is a trainer who has some problems with exercising excessively. I'm really working on helping him slow down with, working with his therapist.
So he has exercise bulimia? Is that
Yes,
sort of
yes,
what?
yeah, he
And
does.
how do you break that? You stop exercising first, or you stop binging first? Because, that's the problem. I know it so well. Like, I exercise to burn off the calories from yesterday's binge, and that sets me up for tonight's binge. And I'm not hungry until the afternoon because I ate so much the night before. And
Yeah.
then I need to exercise it off, and then it perpetuates the cycle. So,
Yes, it's a very tough cycle. I really tried to, number one, just for this gentleman, I'm really pushing him. He needs to be monitored closely by his physician because he's doing damage to his body without realizing it. And I mean that in the truest sense, he doesn't realize it. But I'm also trying to have him really fuel his body adequately, because when you binge and you wake up the next day and you're not hungry, I think that kind of sets you off. So I think in one way, eating at regular intervals can be very helpful.
yeah, that's what they say. Eat,
Yeah,
no
eat.
matter if you binged or not, just
Yes.
eat. Force yourself to eat.
That's correct. Just start, even if you're not recognizing hunger, if you do feed yourself at regular intervals every 2 to 3 hours, let's say, you will find, at least from a hunger perspective, that you're less likely that to have hunger as a trigger. And certainly if you're exercising, your body needs carbohydrate to refuel your muscles. So that's just so important. But
Yeah, that's so sad about women with eating disorders that, they go the low carb. They believe all that almost religious seal of food and this rule and that rule. And now low carb is big and no bread and no this and no that. And then they keep over exercising.
Yeah, I think
And,
it's so.
Just goodbye period, goodbye libido, goodbye thick hair, goodbye stable
Yeah,
nails, goodbye stable mood, goodbye sleep, goodbye, sleeping through the night, everything.
absolutely everything. Yes, it really can wreak havoc on your body. I do see quite a few women of your age and mine as well. Maybe because I'm a little bit older, I tend to attract that clientele, but it's very challenging.
The knot that we have to kind of solve or cut open first is the fixation on weight. Like, I do everything I do to keep my weight in check or to not gain weight. So this is the one piece that we have to address in order to the rest of the issues to even be addressed, because otherwise you just go back to different behaviors. People who struggle from bulimia and you make them stop vomiting, then they just stop eating. And if you make an anorexic eat, then she'll just start purging or overexercising or whatever it is. So we have to really, that's why I'm so passionate about this. We have to work on our own internalized fat phobia.
Absolutely.
And that's the missing piece to liberation, and it's nowhere to be found out there in the mainstream media.
I agree with you 100%. I think that's probably the scariest thing for anyone struggling with an eating disorder to really think about what recovery will mean. Like, how will I be in a larger body? What's going to happen to my body? I mean, we really don't have any guarantees. We don't know. It depends on whether someone's restricted, whether someone's binge. We have no idea sometimes what a genetic body weight will be like. And sometimes if someone's been restricting for so long and had yo-yo dieting, sometimes their weight may be a little bit, their genetic set point may have been a little bit higher. We just don't know. And I think that's a really scary thing for someone to hear, that you just don't know. And I think that we have to be careful not to guarantee anything to our clients. I think it's so important to be honest. The relationship with a provider is so important, that they trust you, that you're really working with them. So,
do they show you their emotions? As in, Erica, I cannot do this because I must not gain any weight? Or do they kind of just take in your advice and secretly think, I can't do this?
I think that I'll just say I keep a box of tissues, several in my office.
Oh,
And,
great.
as soon as someone comes in and they start to talk about their story, the tears start to flow. And, I work as I said, very closely with a therapist, because sometimes people will say things without meaning, and I'll certainly redirect them because I'm not a therapist. But I think having a team where you can really share what's going on in the room is so important. Some people are a little more able to articulate what they're feeling than others, but I really just try to make people feel safe. And often people will say, oh my goodness, you're the first person who didn't give me a diet. Like, I'm leaving here without a diet. Like, how I can just eat what I want. It's almost like disbelief. And sometimes people cry out of a sense of relief. So
yeah. You know what that reminds me of? They had a mother elephant tied to a pole or something. I don't know, chained to a pole, and she gave birth to a little one, which is the cutest thing in the world anyway. I mean, baby elephant, please.
My goodness, yes.
And then at some point the mother died and the baby elephant was by itself, but it was not a baby anymore. But they did not chain the young elephant, like maybe he was, I don't know, 3 years old or something. And they didn't chain him to the pole, but he never strayed.
Oh.
He never strayed. They had to really reteach him, because it was just that's where we are, and mom was always there, and she didn't.
Yeah.
We get this stuff has been passed along into our psyche. Like, women are supposed to look like that. Our strongest asset is appearance. We have to do that. And then someone tells you, you don't have to do that. There is no chain. You don't have to diet. You do not have to over-exercise, or even if you don't want to exercise, then don't do it. If you wanted to go for a walk once a week, great.
Yes.
And people go, yeah, that sounds nice, but I think I don't want to stray too far from this pole.
Yes. I have to just say that I've never really heard that analogy. I love it. And that's such a great analogy. I'm going to use it later.
I got a picture also of a horse that is tied to a plastic chair. And the meme on top of it, it says, the only thing that's really holding you back is your mind.
Yes.
Because the horse was totally obediently standing tied
Yes.
to a plastic chair that weighs, I don't know, 500 grams. And it was
goodness.
literally, I viscerally felt it. I'm like, Merritt, you are the one that is holding you prisoner. There's no
Yes.
one out there. You
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
play the victim, and certainly you were inundated with all that stuff. But at this moment in time, we are the ones that have to liberate ourselves. And we
Absolutely.
need to trust those people that are telling us that we are allowed to stray further from the pole.
Absolutely. But also, I would say that it's important to be gentle with yourself. It's a process. It takes time.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
good that you mentioned that,
oh
because
my
I'm
goodness.
always beating myself up for not being better at recovery and for not finally straying from that pole further, as I sometimes do, and then I beat myself up because
Yeah.
I talk
Oh,
so smartly, and I'm like, yeah, what?
the pole is protection. And so you let
True.
go and you go back. You let go, you go back. That's how recovery works. It's not, it's not linear. I wish that it were. It just takes time and patience and really learning to love yourself, from the inside out. It's not easy.
And what I realized, what really has changed in the last 1.5 or 2 years that I started to, the first thing I could do, and of course did, was clean my social media feed and curate my feed and blah. And what really changed is my perception of other people's bodies. And that's amazing, especially with women.
Yes.
I look at a heavier woman and I'm like, I would love to be hugged by her. I have this, I'm drawn to this much more because it's this female and softness and this luscious, I don't know how to name it.
You're naming it. Yes.
But I'm much more drawn to that. I'm like, oh, I want to be around her. And her presence is she's much more present. There's more of her. And I'm probably describing myself as I was, like the tense gym rat that has to burn a certain amount of calories and do my push-ups before I'm allowed to eat. That's not anything I'm drawn to, because that's not, I don't feel any life in there, any arrows, you know what I mean? No, nothing. It's just
you're letting go of that identity. That's what I'm hearing, is that you're drawn to softer, maybe a softer body, a softer way of being,
and there's no internal thing of like, oh, I wouldn't want to touch her belly, or I wouldn't want to touch any, like it might have been when I was myself so ashamed for my body that I just, anything that was resembling that, I was trying to get away from. And now I'm like, I would love to touch that belly. I'm not, and as far as I know, I'm not a lesbian, which is sort of a pity, but I'm not repulsed at all.
That is tremendous progress. And I think
that is something that has changed.
I hear you. And I think that's actually really good information for your listeners to hear, that they can change their mindset and they can curate their social media feeds and what they choose to listen to and see. And when you expose yourself to images of all different types of people, larger bodies, your perceptions really can change. The media that we're in right now is geared towards diet culture, but we can change what we see.
And it's about the energy of someone. And I know you probably do too. We immediately sniff out the people that are strenuously trying to be somebody or look differently, or, be a certain fit ideal or a skinny ideal. I'm not resonating with them at all. I'm resonating with people who are letting themselves be themselves.
Merit, that's what I must say. That's what attracted me to you, to your Facebook group, to this whole movement. I've been in private practice a long time, and I've only been on Facebook and social media really for the past few years. It was new to me. I mean, I'm sort of like an old person, and but I'm going to say you can teach old people, new tricks. You can.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Neuroplasticity for the win.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But just coming on to social media, I learned, and I learned it through a Facebook group that I was in for women my age. And I ended up having to leave because it was becoming triggering. There was too much diet talk, and it was crazy.
Everywhere.
It's everywhere. And I sort of found the Health at Every Size groups, and it was like, oh my goodness, where have you been my whole life?
There's a safe space, finally.
Where have you been? And I've been doing it myself quietly on the side in my little private practice and trying to teach it to other people that I work with. But I didn't know that there was this whole world on the internet. So it's wonderful to found you and this whole...
It's the greyhounds finding each other,
Yes,
or the Rottweilers finding each other, because we don't know if we're not connected. So we have to kind of find each other. And then we realize there's a huge community out there, health at every size. But
it is huge, yes.
We might previously not have known. And I'm in a lot of groups as well, groups about podcasting, about science and whatever. And it can always be triggering, even in body positive groups. Mm-hmm. There's always talk about, but I still have to lose weight, or, people having their own made up story about themselves. And I'm like, I cannot preach to people who don't want to be preached to. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
I can just talk about stuff. And if people like my message and know that they're not alone and this is not a crazy thing, then that's good. But I'm fighting against a majority that is completely disordered.
Even in my association, the narrative is still thin is in, and you've got to work at it at all costs. Doesn't matter that we know the statistics show that diets don't work. That doesn't matter.
But it was always like that. Even in science and everything, new ideas are, per definition, being rejected. The first thing is new ideas, you ignore them. Then you ridicule them, and then you start to embrace them, and then you start sharing them. It's always been, Galileo, whatever it was, you come up with a new idea that is actually true. It's always been the case that people went against it first, because if you've been invested in that for years, and you might have to realize that you maybe wasted 40 years on a weight loss endeavor that was moderately or not at all successful, instead of living your life, and that we're all here for a very short amount of time on this planet.
Yes.
That is painful.
Can I just say it's very painful.
There's so much grief that is still awaiting me. And I'm sort of detouring it very often, because I'm like, oh my God, this is going to hurt. I could have done so many other things than worry about my weight and exercise.
Mary, you're doing them. You're doing them now. You're living your life. You're breaking free from that chain. You're moving out. And
you're moving further away from the plastic chair, but then I go back to the plastic chair. Like, probably safer here. It's a process, as you said.
You're going out and you're spreading the word. Yeah. You're spreading the word.
Yeah. Yes. What are some good experiences you had with clients that made you realize that you were actually now doing the right thing?
So I will say that I started a little Facebook group myself just for intuitive eating support. I wanted it to be a little more intimate, small. And I started an intuitive eating virtual, like a live group. And I did it because one of my amazing clients, I just have to talk about her, and I'll give my nod to Kate. Kate is someone that I've worked with for the past 5 years, who, she will say it, she never thought she would recover from her eating disorder. She never thought it would be possible. And I think there's probably one of the little more hardcore cases. I mean, she, more than half of her life, had been having all different types of symptoms in and out of treatment programs. And she really worked hard on her recovery. I mean, I can tell you that we've had all kinds of meal outings. I've eaten meals, went food shopping with her, and really tried to neutralize all foods. And so it sort of came together at the right timing. She said to me, my therapist said I need to learn about intuitive eating. This woman I've been working with all this time is in recovery. Let's do it. Let's have an intuitive eating program. Guess what? I opened it up. We started. She was already done with it. She was so Kate, thank you. Kate actually got me to start doing an intuitive eating program, and she doesn't need it right now because she's doing so beautifully. But I've had many clients who have, recovered, and I sometimes think, oh my God, people really recover. People really do recover, with the right therapy, with the right work ethic, with the right circumstances.
Feeling safe also. Very important.
Feeling safe, yes. And working with a nutrition therapist who recognizes health at every size and understands and is patient, just the same thing as finding a therapist who really gets you. Some people need to have medication, some people need, other types of services, other kinds of treatment. But the bottom line is people recover. Mm-hmm. And I see it over and over. I wouldn't do this work. This work is the most gratifying thing I've ever done in my life. I'm blessed. Every day I go to work and I'm blessed. I never know who I'm going to be meeting. I find people who are struggling with this particular issue are the strongest people I've ever met. I really mean that. I think that every day that someone's working on recovery, I kind of compare it to like doing a marathon, really, in terms of how hard the work is.
And if someone really finds liberation, and you can really only do that with intuitive eating and health at every size, mm-hmm. then they will spread the word.
Yes.
That's a good thing. If someone really discovers how it feels, I get the impression that those are the people who start talking about it and who start to promote the idea, because, you cannot keep that to yourself. If you really realize what it feels like to be free, to be finally like the baby elephant, to walk wherever you want to, not ever having to come back to that pole at all, mm-hmm. they will talk about that.
They will talk about it because their lives will now be free. They'll be open to adventures and new experiences, and it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah. And the health at every size and intuitive eating community, mm-hmm. those are the most passionate, warm-hearted, kind-hearted human beings I've ever met in one heap in my life.
I'm in total agreement. It's a godsend.
It is. So that says something about it. There's no diet community that'll ever give you that sense of safety and openness and mm-hmm. vulnerability and talking about stuff and helping each other out without scarcity mentality and everything. I've never seen that.
Nor have I.
And that's healing.
I agree. Community is healing.
So tell everyone how they could reach out to you if they want to work with you.
So you can go to my website, which is ericaleon.com. And I work with individuals. I work virtually. I see people in my office in New York. I also have an e-course on intuitive eating, really to help someone who's just starting out learn how to start the process, because it can be scary and hard to do alone. So that's available. That information is on my website. And thank you so much, Mary, for having me. This has been wonderful to be able to spread the word and share this time with you.
You can't get away without my last question, Erica.
Oh, you're me.
You wanted to, but I'm not letting you. The last question is, what would you like to be remembered for?
What would I like to be remembered for? I forgot about this question.
It's the most important one.
I know. I listen to a lot of your podcasts.
Yeah, we kind of touched on it already, but still.
No, I think I want to be remembered for my humanity, for being a kind, caring, really loving, empathic person. That's what I want to be remembered for. That's how I see myself.
Thank you so much. This has been amazing.
Oh, thank you so much. This has been inspiring. You're inspiring.
Thank you.
This was today's dose of badassery from Life Unrestricted. Find the show notes with links to everything we mentioned in this episode over at lifeunrestricted.org. And if this show is making you feel good, awesome, make sure to subscribe and please let others feel good too. By leaving a 5-star review on iTunes, you'll help make this show more visible and therefore more accessible for others. You're the best. Thanks.